Hi, I'm Kayla, and this is Diversity and Adaptations of Desert Plants.
I'm Jada.
Kayla.
I'm Karen.
Desert plants work and function differently than normal plants that are either in your homes or in the tropics. Even though most plants use CO2 energy and H2O to create a sugar and to thrive, they also release O2 in the atmosphere. Desert plants use their resources sparingly, still making the material they need. Different types of plants use a variety of different ways to preserve resources that we may not know of, but we can figure out. Desert plants possess smaller but deeper pores that hold water and release carbon emissions at slower rates. Desert plants possess smaller stomata, and stomata are the little pore-like structures that are in charge of water release. Stomata is open and closed by cells that are called guard cells. Guard cells open and close the stomata at the plant to release water at different types and to different types of gas emissions. The guard cells act as guards of the plant and regulate what goes in and out of the cell.
Waxy covering. Many desert plants have a waxy covering made from cutin to protect them against the harsh elements of the desert. Desert plants will most often have no shade to protect them from the harsh sun rays, so they have a waxy coating to help protect against that. The waxy protective also helps reduce the amount of water that is lost during the process of transpiration. Conserving water while in the desert is extremely important because finding water is extremely difficult due to the lack of rain and moisture in the soil.
Desert plants are nocturnal because at night, that's when the flowers bloom. This is because the temperatures are at its lowest and it will not cause harm to the plants. And at this time, the plants can get pollinated. Since desert plants typically don't have as much chlorophyll in them, this causes them to be very light in color or very pale. So in order to combat this, the plants release a very sweet smell that will attract insects to them, and night flying insects and moths will help pollinate the desert plants. One way the leaves of desert plants help for the plant to survive in these conditions is by having small leaves. In having small leaves, the rate of transpiration can be controlled so the amount of water lost is very minimal. This is because the stomata are closed during the day when the temperature is at its highest, and when the stomata open at night or when the temperatures are low, so it can get moisture and get rid of waste. Since the leaves have waxy covering, as mentioned earlier, this helps the water stay inside the plant even during the hot temperatures. As a way to adapt to survive in the desert, the plants have shallow roots that don't go more than 4 inches into the ground. This helps the plant absorb as much water as possible in the shortest amount of time, because rain in the desert tends to be in short bursts and scarce to come by. After absorbing all the water, the plant then stores it in the roots, leaves, and stems. It stores the water throughout the plant so that it can be used during the daytime or during the dry season when water is hard to find. Plants that store water during the dry season are called succulents.
Some desert plants have taken tactical measures in order to protect themselves from predators and other factors of the environment. Cacti do this defense mechanism to make sure that predators do not take their water supply and to also make sure that they do not completely destroy their bodies. The cacti come in various shapes and sizes, even having flowers that help bring in water and pollinate. But the cacti are mostly known for their spikes/spines, which help identify them. In the quote above, it states that the thorn/spine are not poisonous to humans or animals, but if left untreated, it can cause long-term illness or complications to health. These thorns help protect them and measure in many different ways, such as spear size, that could potentially harm the admirer or predator. The spear size can come and vary from cacti to cacti and are not necessarily just on the spine of the cacti. The cacti can also have thorns on the flower part, like the prickly pear cacti. In the next couple of slides, there will be a couple of examples of some desert plants that have adapted to the desert and all that comes with it. Here is a blue yucca. The blue yucca is one of the plants in the desert that is adapted to live and thrive in the desert, mainly the Arizona. The blue yucca is a succulent. Since the blue yucca is a desert plant, it has adapted itself to need sun whenever it can have it. However, it can also survive in little as 10-degree Fahrenheit weather, which is really cold. Since it is a desert plant, the succulent can last with little to no water. This plant is found and is native to the Chihuahuan Desert in Mexico, but can also be found in Arizona or Utah. This plant has a blue-gray color that helps with the sun absorption rates and also helps it stand out in the desert. The season that this plant thrives and emerges in is the summer and spring. This is where the plant flowers, bloom, and grow and present. The plant uses prong-like spines to hold the water that will help it live throughout the tough times. It will use the water sparingly throughout the seasons or until the next rainfall. This plant can also have flowers that grow out of the prongs during the flowering season, which helps with the reproduction of the blue yucca. Here is the chocolate flower. This aromatic smelling flower has a distinguishing smell of chocolate that gives the flower its name, the chocolate flower. This type of flower is a perennial, which means that it is a recurring flower that comes back every year. The reason that this flower survives in extreme heat is because it thrives in hot temperatures and low temperatures, along with little to no water. This flower also needs full sun to be able to grow and produce enough nutrients to survive. This flower is also native to the Chihuahuan Desert in Mexico, but it can also be found in many other deserts like Arizona or Utah. The aroma is used to attract pollinators and to attract people to come and observe it. The pollinators help with reproduction area of the plant, ensuring that it will emerge in other areas of the desert. The flowers, however, do not stay the entirety of the plant's life. They wither away after the reproduction has commenced and reappear in the springtime.
Another desert plant includes the creosote bush. The creosote bush is found in the deserts of southwestern North America and exhibits an adaptation where the plant can live without water for up to 2 years, meaning that it can go for a long time within a drought. Each creosote bush develops chromosomes differently depending on the specific area in which they grow. For example, the creosote bush that grows in the Arizona desert can develop 52 chromosomes, while the bush that grows in the Mojave Desert has 78 chromosomes. Researchers have found that it can be due to rainfall as to why they develop different numbers of chromosomes. Some other adaptations of the creosote bush include the fact that they open their stomata in the morning in order to capture as much moisture and water as possible before the sun fully rises. As mentioned earlier, most desert plants open their stomata at night to release waste, but the creosote bush actually closes the stomata once the sun is fully risen. Any other time, the stomata are closed to prevent water loss. Another adaptation that the creosote bush has is that its bushes grow in a specific shape according to what the plant's purpose is. For example, a cone-shaped bush will channel rain more easily, and its sole purpose is to bring more nourishment into the roots. So as mentioned earlier, they have shallow roots, which makes the water go more deeply into the roots. So the cone shape helps it to kind of go more easily. A bowl-shaped bush will collect leaf litter and other material in which provides a habitat for other organisms. So when it's in a bowl shape, it kind of thrives off of the food and waste of other organisms. So it can go deep into its roots and nourish the plant. The habitat for other organisms provides a rich soil for the bush to maintain livelihood. Some more interesting adaptations include the fact that the creosote bush can clone itself. After 90 years of survival, the creosote bush's branches will crown and break off into other sections of the land. So an example that I saw was that of a potato. When you chop a potato into different pieces and place them in other places of the land, it will reproduce and make more potatoes. Essentially, the crowns of the branches will plant other bushes as the stems of the branches all come from the same seed. The oldest surviving creosote bush is 11,700 years old. So the reason that the creosote bush was able to live that long, scientists found that it actually has bacteria around its roots that help it grow and stay healthy. It includes bacteria that produces plant growth hormones, like an immunity bacteria that helps the plant not get sick. The plant will basically give off a gas called ethylene gas, which is converted from a chemical called ACC, and that's the gas that actually makes the hormone and helps the plant to grow and stay nourished. So the bush is actually not reliant on water, like as desert plants would be, where they would just hold in the water. They actually rely on the bacteria that goes around the roots.
Cacti, succulents, and perennials make up most of the most common desert plants. They're also very popular in gardens, especially in drought-ridden states, because they require low maintenance, little to no shade, and very little water. Cacti. Depending on the environment that the cacti are in, they can change their shape to better suit the climate they reside in. The more water there is, the more water the stem will absorb and store, causing it to swell and increase in size. The grooves in the cactus can also help the plants get water to where it is needed. In order to get more water before it evaporates, the roots in the cacti are closer to the surface. Cacti are unique to other plants because they have areolas in their stem where they grow their spines. Succulents. Like cacti, succulents can have different shapes and sizes. Some can get as large as cattle and some are as small as pebbles. In order to retain water for long periods of time, succulents have small leaves and spongy tissue to help store their water. Succulents are capable of maintaining flower stalks and fruit until they have no water left. Their thick, waxy skin can alter depending on their light and moisture exposure. Aloe is a very well-known succulent. During the dry, hot summers, perennials will become more dormant in order to preserve water, and then come back to life once the climate is not so dry. They have deeper roots to reach the soil that has more moisture deeper down in the soil because the soil stays moist down deeper for longer periods of time. They also have larger roots than cacti because they can store water. They need to store water for longer periods of time in order to come back to life once they are done being dormant.
And then here are our references. And thank you so much for listening and have a good day.